You look at your life and see what is happening around you. The people you meet, the results you get, the situations you face. It often feels like everything is coming from the outside, like the world is deciding how your life will go. But what if that is not true? What if your outer world is not random, but a reflection of something deeper inside you? What if your habits, your thoughts, and your beliefs are quietly shaping everything you experience? This idea may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is also powerful. Because if your world is a reflection, then change does not begin the outside. It begins within you. If you are enjoying this audiobook and want to continue building real communication confidence, subscribe to this channel now. More chapters are coming, and each one will guide you step by step through mastering every conversation. Most people spend their time trying to change what they see around them. They try to fix situations, control outcomes, and adjust external things to feel better. But they often ignore the one place where real change starts: their inner world. The way they think, the way they react, and the way they see themselves. These things may not be visible, but they shape everything. Like a mirror, your outer world reflects what is happening inside you. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently, over time. This audiobook is about understanding that reflection. It is about learning how your inner state influences your reality. It is about noticing patterns, not outside, but within. Because once you understand the connection, you stop feeling powerless. You stop blaming everything around you, and you start taking control in a different way, a deeper way, a way that actually creates lasting change. Chapter 1. What you see is not always what it is. You wake up and begin your day like you always do. You look at your life and notice what is happening around you. Some things feel good, and some things feel frustrating. You see results that make you proud, and others that make you question yourself. It feels like the world is giving you these experiences. It feels like things are happening to you. And most of the time, you accept that without thinking too much. You believe what you see is simply how things are. But one day, something feels different. You notice a pattern that you have seen before. A situation that feels familiar, even though it should be new. The same kind of problem appears again, just in a different form. The same kind of feeling returns, even in a new place. And for a moment, you stop and think, why does this keep happening? Why do different situations feel the same? That question stays with you. You start to pay more attention to your experiences, not just what is happening, but how it feels. You notice that certain emotions repeat more than others. You notice that certain outcomes appear again and again. It is not always the same event, but it carries the same energy, the same frustration, the same doubt, or the same tension. It feels like a pattern, but you cannot explain it yet. Still, you know it is not random. At first, you look outside for answers. You think maybe it is the people around you. Maybe it is your environment. Maybe it is just bad timing. These explanations feel easy to accept. They allow you to move on without looking deeper. But something inside you is not fully convinced. Because even when things change outside, the feeling stays the same. And that makes you question your first answer. So you begin to look inward, even if it feels unfamiliar. You ask yourself simple questions. What am I thinking in these moments? How do I usually react? What do I expect before something happens? At first, the answers are not clear. Your thoughts feel automatic. Your reactions feel normal. But the more you pay attention, the more you start to see patterns inside you. You notice how quickly your mind creates meaning. A small situation happens, and your thoughts begin to shape it. You decide what it means before fully understanding it. You assume how it will go before it even unfolds. And once that thought is there, your feelings follow. Your actions follow too. And suddenly, the outcome matches what you expected. Not because it was certain, but because you moved in that direction. This realization feels quiet, but powerful. You begin to see that your inner world is not separate from your outer world. They are connected in ways you did not notice before. Your thoughts are not just reactions. They are part of the process that creates your experience. The way you see things influences what you get from them. And over time, that influence becomes stronger. Later in the day, you test this awareness. You face a small situation that would normally frustrate you. You feel the usual reaction starting to form. But this time, you pause. You notice your thoughts before they take over. You see how you are about to interpret the moment, and instead of following it immediately, you stay with it. You give yourself space to see it differently. That moment feels new. Not because the situation changed, but because you did. You respond with a little more awareness, a little less assumption, and something shifts. The outcome is not exactly the same as before. It feels lighter, less heavy, less controlled by your usual reaction. And that shows you something important. You begin to understand that what you see is not always what it is. What you see is influenced by how you look at it. Your perspective shapes your experience. Your expectations shape your response. And your response shapes your results. It is not about controlling everything. It is about becoming aware of your role in what happens. As the days pass, you continue to notice this connection. You see how your thoughts appear before your feelings. You see how your feelings guide your actions. And you see how your actions influence what comes next. It becomes a pattern that you can recognize. Not perfectly, but clearly enough to understand. You also begin to notice something else. When your inner state is calm, your experience feels different. The same situation feels easier to handle. The same challenge feels less overwhelming. It is not because the world changed. It is because you did. And that change affected how everything felt. This does not mean everything becomes perfect. You still face challenges. You still feel discomfort. But now, you do not see those things the same way. You do not see them as something completely outside your control. You see them as something connected to how you are thinking and reacting. That awareness gives you something important. Not control over everything, but influence. The ability to shift your experience by shifting your inner state. And that is where real change begins. Not by forcing the outside world to change, but by understanding how your inner world shapes it. One evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the moments where you reacted automatically. You think about the moments where you paused, and you notice the difference. The moments where you were aware, felt more stable, more clear, less reactive, and that shows you the direction you want to follow. You are not trying to control every thought. You are not trying to change everything at once. You are simply noticing, seeing the connection, understanding the pattern. And slowly, that understanding changes how you move through your day. You begin to trust this process, not because it is easy, but because it is real. You can see the effect. You can feel the difference. And that gives you confidence to continue, to keep observing, to keep adjusting, to keep learning from what you experience. Over time, this becomes part of you. You do not have to remind yourself all the time. You naturally become more aware. You naturally pause before reacting. You naturally question what you see. And that changes how you experience your life. You are no longer just reacting to the world. You are participating in it. You are shaping it through your thoughts, your perspective, and your actions. And once you understand that, everything feels different. Because now, you know something simple but powerful. What you see is not always what it is. It is also a reflection of how you see it. And when you change how you see things, you begin to change what you experience. That is where the mirror begins to reveal itself, not outside, but inside you. Chapter 2. The inner patterns you carry everywhere. You do not enter each day as a blank page. You carry something with you, even if you do not notice it. It is not something physical, but it shapes everything you experience. Your thoughts, your expectations, and your habits of reaction move with you. They follow you into every situation, every conversation, and every quiet moment. And most of the time, they work without your awareness. They guide how you see the world before anything even happens. One morning, you begin to notice this more clearly. You wake up, nothing unusual has happened yet. The day has not started, and nothing has gone wrong. But still, there is a feeling already present, a quiet tone in your mind that shapes how you see the day ahead. It may be calm, or it may carry a small sense of pressure. You realize that this feeling did not come from outside. It was already there before anything began. As the day continues, you see how that inner state affects everything. A small situation happens, and your reaction comes quickly. It feels automatic, like you have done it many times before. The way you interpret the moment feels familiar. You are not seeing it for the first time. You are seeing it through something you already carry. And that changes what the moment becomes. You begin to notice that certain reactions repeat more than others. Some moments make you feel tense in a way you recognize. Some situations bring the same kind of doubt you have felt before. Even when the details are different, the feeling is the same. It is like you are experiencing a pattern, not just a moment. And that pattern does not come from outside alone. It is connected to something inside you. At first, this feels confusing. You wonder why different situations create the same reaction. You think it might just be coincidence. But the more you pay attention, the harder it is to ignore. The same type of response appears again and again. It shows up in different places, with different people, but it feels the same. And that makes you stop and look deeper. You begin to ask yourself simple questions. What do I expect before something happens? What do I assume without noticing? How do I usually respond when I feel uncertain? These questions are not easy at first. Your thoughts feel fast and automatic. But as you slow down, you begin to see small patterns forming. Not perfect answers, but clear signs of repetition. You notice how your mind often prepares for what it already believes. If you expect something to be difficult, you feel tension before it begins. If you expect something to go wrong, you look for signs that confirm it. And when those signs appear, they feel real and justified. But you begin to see that your expectation came first. The feeling followed it, and the experience matched it. This realization feels important, not because it explains everything, but because it shows you where to look. You stop focusing only on what is happening outside. You start paying attention to what is happening inside. Your thoughts, your assumptions, and your expectations begin to feel more important than before, because they shape how you experience everything else. Later in the day, you face a familiar moment. Something small happens, but it brings a strong reaction. Before, you would follow that reaction without thinking. But now, you pause. You notice how quickly your mind creates meaning. You see the thought forming before it becomes a full reaction. And in that moment, you feel the pattern instead of just the event. That pause changes something. You realize that the moment is not as fixed as it seems. Your reaction is not the only possible one. There is space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, you have a choice. Not a perfect one, but a real one. You can follow the pattern, or you can observe it. You choose to observe. You stay with the moment without rushing to react. You notice your thoughts as they appear. You feel your emotions without letting them take control. And something begins to shift. The situation feels less heavy. Not because it changed, but because you did not add more to it. You allowed it to be what it is, without shaping it too quickly. As the evening comes, you reflect on your day. You think about the moments where your inner patterns were clear, the times where your reactions felt familiar, and the times where you paused and saw them differently. That contrast shows you something important. Your experience is not just about what happens. It is about how you carry yourself into what happens. The next day, this awareness continues. You begin to notice your inner state more often. You see how your mood shapes your interpretation. You see how your expectations influence your attention. You begin to recognize that your mind is not just reacting. It is participating. It is shaping what you notice, what you focus on, and what you believe is happening. This does not mean everything is under your control. You still face situations you cannot change. You still experience things that are unexpected. But your inner patterns still play a role. They influence how you understand those situations. They influence how you respond, and that response influences what happens next. You begin to understand that these patterns are not random. They were built over time. Through repeated thoughts, repeated reactions, and repeated experiences. They became familiar because you followed them again and again. And now they feel automatic. But automatic does not mean unchangeable. Later, you test this idea again. You face a situation that would normally trigger a strong response. You feel the pattern starting to form. But this time, you recognize it earlier. You see the thought before it grows. You feel the emotion before it takes over. And you pause. You stay present with it instead of following it. That moment feels powerful. Not because you controlled everything, but because you saw it clearly. You did not let the pattern run without awareness. You interrupted it, even if only for a moment. And that interruption creates space. Space for a different response. Space for a different experience. As days pass, this becomes more natural. You begin to see your patterns more quickly. You recognize them as they appear. You understand that they are not the moment itself, but something you bring into the moment. And that understanding changes how you move through your day. You are no longer fully inside your reactions. You are also observing them. You are noticing how your inner state shapes your outer experience. And that awareness gives you influence. Not control over everything, but influence over how you experience what happens. You begin to feel a quiet shift. Your experiences feel less overwhelming. Not because life became easier, but because you are not reacting the same way. You are not carrying the same patterns into every moment without noticing. You are becoming aware of them. And awareness changes everything. One evening, you sit quietly and reflect again. You think about how much you carry with you each day. Not just tasks or responsibilities, but thoughts and expectations. You realize that your inner patterns travel with you. They shape what you see, how you feel, and how you act. That realization stays with you because it shows you something simple but powerful. You are not just experiencing the world. You are interacting with it through what you carry inside. And when you begin to understand those patterns, you begin to understand your experience more clearly. You do not need to change everything at once. You do not need to control every thought. You just need to notice, to see the patterns, to understand what you carry. And slowly, that awareness begins to change how you move through your life. Because once you see that your inner patterns travel with you, you begin to realize something important. Wherever you go, you bring yourself. And what you bring shapes what you see. Chapter 3, The Meaning You Give to Everything. Nothing in your life comes with fixed meaning. Events happen, words are spoken, and situations unfold around you. At first, everything seems clear and obvious, like it already carries its own meaning. But if you look closely, you will see that meaning is not inside the event itself. It is created inside you. The way you understand something shapes how it feels. The way it feels shapes how you respond. And your response shapes what happens next. Most of the time, this process happens very fast. Something small happens, and your mind immediately gives it meaning. You do not pause to question it or look at it from another angle. You accept it as truth without even realizing it. This makes your experience feel automatic and fixed. But in reality, you are participating in creating that experience. You are not just seeing what is happening. You are interpreting it in a specific way. And that interpretation becomes your reality. One morning, you begin to notice this clearly. A simple situation happens. Nothing serious or unusual. But your mind reacts quickly and gives it meaning right away. You feel a certain emotion without thinking too much about it. It feels natural, like this is the only way to understand what just happened. But something inside you pauses for a moment. You begin to question that automatic reaction. You wonder if there is another way to see it. And that small question changes everything. You stay with the moment a little longer than usual. Instead of reacting immediately, you observe your thoughts. You notice how quickly your mind tries to explain what is happening. You see how it creates a story around the situation. That story feels real, but now you are looking at it from a distance. You begin to understand that the story is not the event itself. It is something your mind is adding. And once you see that, you realize you have more control than you thought. As the day continues, you notice this pattern again and again. A comment from someone feels negative at first. A delay feels like something is going wrong. A small mistake feels bigger than it actually is. Each time, your mind gives meaning before you even think about it. And each time, that meaning shapes how you feel. But now, you are more aware of this process. You begin to see that meaning is not fixed. It is something you are creating in each moment. Later in the day, you face a situation that would normally frustrate you. Your first thought appears quickly, telling you something is wrong. That thought feels strong and convincing. But this time, you do not follow it immediately. You pause and stay with the moment. You ask yourself if this is the only possible interpretation. At first, it feels difficult to think differently. But slowly, you begin to see other possibilities. You realize that the situation might not be as negative as it first seemed. It could simply be neutral or even helpful in a different way. This does not change what happened, but it changes how you feel about it. Your mind becomes calmer and more open. You are no longer reacting with the same intensity. You are choosing how to see it. And that choice changes your experience completely. As the hours pass, this awareness grows stronger. You begin to notice how often your mind creates quick stories. These stories explain what is happening and what it means. They also predict what might happen next. But now you see that these stories are not always accurate. They are based on past experiences and familiar patterns. They feel real, but they are not the only truth. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the moments where your interpretation was automatic. You also think about the moments where you paused and looked deeper. The difference between those moments becomes very clear. When you paused, everything felt lighter and more flexible. When you reacted automatically, everything felt heavier and more fixed. That contrast teaches you something important. The next day, you carry this awareness with you. You still experience thoughts and reactions, but you see them differently now. You recognize that your mind is always creating meaning. You understand that this meaning shapes your reality. And because of that, you begin to question it more often. Not in a stressful way, but in a curious way. You allow yourself to see things from more than one angle. As days pass, this becomes more natural. You no longer accept every thought as truth. You give yourself space before reacting. You notice how your interpretation affects your emotions, and you begin to choose your perspective more carefully. This does not mean everything becomes easy, but it means you are no longer controlled by every thought that appears. You begin to understand something very important. Your experience of life is not just based on what happens. It is based on how you understand what happens. The meaning you give to things shapes your emotions. Your emotions shape your actions, and your actions shape your results. This creates a cycle that repeats over time. Later one evening, you sit in silence and think about this deeply. You realize how many times you have reacted to your own interpretation. You see how often your mind added meaning that made things feel heavier. And you understand that this pattern can change, not by controlling everything, but by becoming aware, by seeing how your mind works. You do not try to change everything at once. You simply continue to notice. You continue to pause. You continue to question the meaning you give to things. And slowly, this changes how you experience your life. You feel more calm and more in control. Not because life is perfect, but because you are seeing it more clearly. You are no longer trapped in one way of thinking. You have space to choose your perspective. You have the ability to respond differently. And that changes everything. Because when you change the meaning you give to things, you change how your life feels. This is where the real shift begins, not outside, but inside you, in the way you understand every moment. Because once you see that meaning is something you create, you begin to create it more consciously. And that changes your entire experience of the world. Chapter 4. The world responds to who you are being. You often think the world is something separate from you. It feels like something you are reacting to every day. People behave in certain ways. Situations appear without warning, and results come whether you expect them or not. It feels like everything is happening outside of you. But slowly, you begin to notice something different. The way you experience the world changes depending on your inner state. The same situation can feel very different on different days. And that shows you something important. One day you wake up feeling calm and clear. Nothing special has happened, but your mind feels steady. As you move through your day, things seem to flow more easily. Small problems do not feel heavy, and interactions feel smoother. You respond with patience instead of frustration. And because of that, the outcomes feel different. It is not that the world changed suddenly. It is that you showed up differently to it. On another day, you wake up feeling tense. Your thoughts are faster, and your mind feels crowded. As you go through the same kind of day, everything feels harder. Small situations feel bigger than they are. Conversations feel more difficult. You react quickly, without much space to think. And the results reflect that tension. The world feels more difficult, even though the outside conditions are similar. You begin to compare these experiences. The same kinds of events happened, but they felt very different. The only clear difference was how you felt inside. That realization stays with you. It shows you that your inner state is not separate from your experience. It is part of it. It influences how you see things, how you respond, and what you create from each moment. As you continue to observe this, you notice how people respond to you differently. When you are calm, your words feel clearer. Your tone feels softer. People seem more open and relaxed around you. But when you feel tense, your energy changes. Even if your words are the same, something feels different. People react to that difference. They respond to your state, not just your actions. This makes you think more deeply. You begin to see that communication is not only about what you say, it is also about how you are when you say it. Your inner state becomes part of your message, and others respond to that, even if they are not aware of it. This shows you how your inner world reaches beyond you. It affects the space around you. Later in the day, you test this awareness. You face a situation that would normally frustrate you. You feel the first reaction starting to form. But this time, you pause. You take a breath and notice your inner state. Instead of reacting immediately, you choose to stay calm. You respond slowly and clearly, and the outcome feels different from what you expected. The situation does not escalate like it usually does. It stays simple and manageable. The other person responds in a calmer way as well. You notice that your response influenced the direction of the moment, not completely, but enough to make a difference. That shows you something powerful. The world is not only acting on you, it is also responding to you. As the days pass, you begin to see this pattern more clearly. Your inner state is always present in every interaction. It shapes how you move, how you speak, and how you respond. And those actions shape what comes back to you. It becomes a cycle. You bring something into the moment, and the moment reflects it back in a different form. You also notice how your expectations play a role. When you expect something to go wrong, your body becomes tense. Your attention focuses on small problems, and your reactions become quicker and less patient. This changes how situations unfold. You are not creating everything, but you are influencing the direction. Your expectation becomes part of the experience. When you expect things to go smoothly, your state changes. You feel more open and relaxed. You give situations more space to develop. You listen more carefully and respond more clearly. And because of that, the outcomes often feel better. This does not mean everything is perfect, but it shows how your inner state guides your outer experience. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the moments where your state was calm. You notice how those moments felt easier and more natural. You also think about the moments where you felt tense. Those moments felt heavier and more difficult. The difference is clear. Your inner state shaped how everything felt. The next day, you move with this awareness. You still face the same kinds of situations. Nothing outside has changed in a big way, but you are paying more attention to yourself. You notice your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions. You see how they influence what happens next, and that gives you a sense of direction. You are no longer trying to control everything outside. You are focusing on what is happening inside. You are becoming aware of how you show up to each moment. And that awareness changes your experience. It creates more space between what happens and how you respond. In that space, you have more choice. As this continues, you begin to feel more steady. You are not reacting as quickly as before. You are not pulled by every situation. You are more present, more aware, and that changes how the world feels to you. It feels less chaotic and more manageable. Not because it changed, but because you did. You begin to understand something simple but powerful. The world responds to who you are being. Not perfectly, and not instantly, but consistently over time. Your inner state becomes part of your outer experience. It shapes how things feel and how they unfold. And that connection changes everything. This does not mean you control everything that happens. Life still brings unexpected moments, but your response to those moments matters. It influences what happens next. And that influence grows as you become more aware. You are no longer just reacting to the world. You are interacting with it in a deeper way. Over time, this awareness becomes part of you. You do not have to remind yourself all the time. You naturally notice your state. You naturally pause before reacting. You naturally choose how to respond. And that creates a different experience of life. One that feels more aligned and more intentional. You are beginning to see the mirror more clearly, not as something outside, but as a reflection of your inner world. What you bring into each moment shapes what you see in return. And when you change what you bring, you begin to change what you experience. That is where the real shift happens, not in trying to control everything outside, but in understanding how your inner state shapes your world. And once you see that, you begin to move through life differently, with more awareness, more clarity, and more intention. Chapter 5. The Identity You Live From. You do not act randomly throughout your day. Most of your actions come from a deeper place inside you. That place is your identity, the way you see yourself. It is not something you always think about, but it guides your behavior. The choices you make often match what you believe about who you are. If you see yourself in a certain way, your actions follow that image. And over time, those actions create your results. This connection is always working, even when you do not notice it. One morning, you begin to notice this more clearly. You are about to start something important, but you hesitate. A thought appears quietly in your mind, telling you something about yourself. It is not loud, but it feels familiar. It sounds like something you have believed for a long time. That thought influences what you do next, and before you realize it, you are acting based on that belief. You pause and look at that moment more closely. You realize the hesitation did not come from the situation itself. It came from how you see yourself in that situation. Your identity shaped your response before you even acted. That realization feels important. It shows you that your actions are not just about what you do. They are about who you believe you are. As the day continues, you begin to notice this pattern again. In small decisions and simple actions, the same identity appears. You either move forward with confidence or hold back with doubt. And each response feels familiar, like it has happened many times before. That is because it has. Your identity has been guiding your actions quietly over time. You begin to understand that your identity is not something fixed. It was built slowly through repeated thoughts and experiences. Every time you thought about yourself in a certain way, it added to that identity. Every time you acted based on that thought, it became stronger. And over time, it started to feel like the truth. But now, you are beginning to question it. Later in the day, you face a situation that challenges you. You feel the old pattern starting to appear again. The same thought, the same hesitation, the same reaction. But this time, you pause. You do not follow it immediately. You observe it instead. And in that moment, you see that it is just a pattern, not a fact. That changes how you respond. You take a small step forward instead of holding back. It does not feel perfect, but it feels different. You are acting in a new way, even if it is only slightly different. And that small change matters because it begins to shift your identity. As the hours pass, you begin to see how this works. Your identity influences your actions, and your actions reinforce your identity. It is a cycle that repeats over time. If you act in the same way, the identity stays the same. But if you act differently, even in small ways, the identity begins to change, and that creates new possibilities. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the moments where your identity guided you. You also think about the moments where you chose differently. The difference between those moments becomes clear. When you followed your old identity, everything felt familiar. When you chose differently, everything felt new and open. The next day, you carry this awareness with you. You begin to notice your identity more often. You see how it appears in your thoughts and reactions. You recognize the patterns that come with it. And because you see it more clearly, you are less controlled by it. You have space to choose your response. As days pass, this awareness grows stronger. You begin to question your old beliefs about yourself. You ask whether they are still true. You notice how they affect your actions and your results. And slowly, you begin to let go of the ones that no longer help you. This process is not fast, but it is real. You also begin to build a new identity through your actions. Each time you act in a new way, you create a new reference for yourself. Each time you respond with awareness, you strengthen that new pattern. And over time, it becomes more natural. You start to see yourself differently, not because you forced it, but because you lived it. Later, you test this again in a simple moment. You are about to react in your usual way, but you pause. You choose a different response, even if it feels uncomfortable. That moment feels small, but it carries meaning. It shows you that your identity is not fixed. It can change through your actions. You begin to understand something important. You do not become someone new by thinking about it. You become someone new by acting in new ways. Your identity follows your behavior over time. And that means you have the ability to shape it. Not instantly, but consistently. As the days continue, you notice the shift becoming more natural. You hesitate less in certain situations. You respond with more clarity and confidence. Your actions begin to align with the person you want to be. And that creates a new pattern, a new way of moving through your life. In the evening, you reflect again. You see how your identity is changing slowly. Not in a dramatic way, but in a steady way. You are becoming more aware of who you are and how you act. And that awareness gives you direction. It helps you choose more intentionally. You are no longer fully controlled by your old identity. You are shaping a new one through your actions. You are seeing the connection between who you believe you are and what you experience. And that changes how you move through your day. Over time, this becomes part of you. You do not need to think about it all the time. You naturally act in ways that align with your new identity. You naturally respond with more awareness. And that changes your experience of the world. It becomes more aligned with who you are becoming. You begin to see the mirror more clearly now. The outer world reflects the identity you live from. When your identity changes, your experience begins to change with it. Not instantly, but consistently over time. And that shows you something powerful. The life you experience is not only shaped by what happens, it is shaped by who you are being in each moment. And when you understand that, you begin to take your identity seriously. You begin to shape it with intention. That is where real change begins. Not in forcing the outside world to be different, but in becoming different inside. Because once you change who you are being, the world begins to reflect that back to you. Chapter 6. The emotions that shape what you attract. Your emotions are not just something you feel. They are something you carry into every moment of your life. They influence how you see situations, how you respond to people, and how you make decisions. Most of the time, you think emotions are reactions to what happens, but they are also part of what shapes what happens next. The way you feel changes how you act, and how you act changes what comes back to you. This connection is always present, even when you are not aware of it. One day, you begin to notice how your emotions affect your experience. You wake up feeling calm, and your day feels smooth and steady. Small challenges do not feel overwhelming. You respond with patience and clarity, and because of that, things seem to move more easily. On another day, you wake up feeling tense or uncertain. The same kinds of situations feel heavier and more difficult. This shows you that your emotions are not just reactions. They are shaping your experience in real time. As you pay more attention, you begin to see how emotions guide your focus. When you feel anxious, your attention moves toward problems. You notice what could go wrong more than what could go right. Your thoughts follow that feeling, and your actions follow your thoughts. This creates a pattern that feels real and consistent, but it started with your emotional state. That state influenced everything that followed. You also notice how emotions affect your energy. When you feel positive and calm, your actions feel more natural. You communicate more clearly and respond more thoughtfully. People around you seem more open and comfortable. But when your emotions are heavy or tense, your energy changes. Even if your words are the same, something feels different. Others respond to that difference, even if they do not understand why. This makes you realize something important. Your emotions are part of what you are bringing into every interaction. They are not invisible in the way you once thought. They shape your tone, your timing, and your presence. And because of that, they influence how others respond to you. The world reflects your emotional state in subtle ways. Not perfectly, but consistently over time. Later in the day, you test this awareness in a simple situation. You feel a strong emotion rising inside you. Your first instinct is to react quickly, like you always have. But this time, you pause. You notice the emotion instead of following it immediately. You allow yourself to feel it without acting on it right away. That pause creates space between the feeling and your response. In that space, something changes. The emotion becomes less overwhelming. You begin to see it more clearly instead of being controlled by it. You choose your response instead of reacting automatically. And the outcome feels different. The situation does not grow into something bigger. It stays simple and manageable. That moment shows you the power of awareness. As the days pass, you continue to observe your emotions more closely. You notice how quickly they can shift your experience. You also notice that they do not last forever. They come and go, depending on your thoughts and your attention. This realization helps you see emotions differently. They are not fixed or permanent. They are part of a process that is always moving. You begin to understand that you are not your emotions. You experience them, but you are not defined by them. This gives you a sense of freedom. You no longer feel like you have to follow every feeling. You can observe it, understand it, and choose how to respond. That choice changes how your life feels. It gives you more control over your experience. Later, you face a situation that would normally create a strong reaction. You feel the emotion rising again, but now you recognize it faster. You pause and stay present with it. You do not try to push it away, and you do not let it control you. You simply notice it, and that changes how it affects you. It becomes something you experience, not something that controls you. As you continue, you begin to notice patterns in your emotions. Certain feelings appear in similar situations. Certain thoughts lead to similar emotions. This shows you that your emotional patterns are connected to your inner world. They are not random. They are part of how you process your experiences. And once you see that, you can begin to understand them more clearly. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the moments where your emotions guided you. You also think about the moments where you paused and chose your response. The difference between those moments is clear. When you reacted automatically, things felt heavier. When you responded with awareness, things felt more balanced. That contrast teaches you something important. The next day, you move with this awareness. You still feel emotions, but you see them differently. You do not treat them as absolute truth. You see them as signals, as part of your experience. And because of that, you are less controlled by them. You have more space to choose how you respond. That space changes everything. As days pass, this becomes more natural. You recognize your emotions more quickly. You understand how they influence your thoughts and actions. And you begin to guide your responses with more awareness. This does not mean you never feel strong emotions. It means you are not controlled by them in the same way. You are present with them. You begin to feel more steady in your daily life. Situations that once felt overwhelming now feel manageable. Not because they are easier, but because you are responding differently. Your emotional state is more balanced. And that balance influences how everything feels. It changes your experience from the inside out. You also notice how this affects your relationships. When you are calm and present, your interactions feel smoother. You listen more carefully and respond more clearly. Others feel that difference, even if they cannot explain it. Your emotional state creates a different kind of connection. And that connection shapes your experience with others. Over time, you begin to trust this process. You see how your emotions influence your reality. You understand that they are not just reactions. They are part of what you bring into every moment. And because of that, they shape what you attract and how you experience it. This awareness becomes part of you. You are no longer reacting blindly to your emotions. You are observing them, understanding them, and choosing how to respond. And that changes everything. Because when your emotional state becomes more balanced, your outer world begins to reflect that balance. This is where the mirror becomes clear again. What you feel inside shapes what you experience outside. Your emotions are part of that reflection. And when you become aware of them, you begin to change what you see. Not by forcing anything, but by understanding yourself more deeply. That is where real transformation begins. Not in controlling every emotion, but in becoming aware of how they shape your life. And once you understand that, you begin to move through the world with more clarity, more calm, and more intention. Chapter 7. The patterns you repeat without noticing. You do not live each day as something completely new. Many parts of your day repeat in ways you do not always notice. The way you think, the way you react, and the way you respond often follow the same path. These patterns feel normal because you have lived them many times before. They happen quickly and without much effort, and because of that, they become part of your identity. You begin to expect them without realizing it. Over time, they shape your experience in quiet but powerful ways. One morning, you start to see this more clearly. You notice how your day begins in a familiar way. The same thoughts appear, and the same feelings follow them. You move through your routine almost automatically. It feels natural, but also predictable. Nothing feels completely new, even when it should. That is when you begin to question what is really happening. As the day continues, you notice the same reactions showing up again. A small situation triggers a familiar response. You feel the same emotion and think the same kind of thoughts. It is like you have already lived this moment before. Even though the details are different, the pattern feels the same. And that makes you pause and look deeper. And you begin to understand that these patterns are not coming from outside alone. They are coming from inside you. Your mind has learned to respond in certain ways over time. It repeats those responses because they feel familiar. But familiar does not always mean helpful. Sometimes, these patterns keep you in the same place. Later in the day, you face a situation that feels very familiar. You can almost predict how you will react. The thought appears before you even think about it. The emotion follows quickly, and the action feels automatic. But this time, you notice it while it is happening. You see the pattern instead of being inside it. That moment creates something new. You pause instead of reacting immediately. You stay with the feeling instead of following it. And in that space, you realize you have a choice. You do not have to repeat the same response. You can choose something different, even if it feels unfamiliar. You take a small step in a different direction. You respond in a way you have not done before. It feels slightly uncomfortable, but also freeing. The situation unfolds differently than usual. Not in a dramatic way, but in a noticeable one. And that shows you something important. As the hours pass, you begin to see how often patterns repeat in your thoughts, in your emotions, and in your actions. You begin to recognize them more quickly. You understand that they are not fixed. They are habits that have been repeated over time. And habits can change when you become aware of them. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the patterns you noticed. You also think about the moment where you chose differently. That moment stands out. It shows you that change is possible. Not by forcing everything, but by noticing what you are doing. The next day, you carry this awareness with you. You begin to see your patterns earlier. You notice the thoughts as they appear. You feel the emotions before they take over. And you pause more often. That pause becomes your space for change. It gives you time to choose. As days pass, this process becomes more natural. You recognize patterns without trying too hard. You understand how they influence your experience, and you begin to shift them slowly. Not all at once, but step by step. Each small change creates a new direction. You begin to feel more in control of your responses. Not because you control everything, but because you are aware. You are no longer moving through your day on autopilot. You are present in your actions. And that changes how your life feels. You also notice how your patterns affect your results. When you repeat the same actions, you get similar outcomes. When you change your actions, even slightly, the outcomes begin to change. This shows you the connection between your behavior and your experience. It makes everything feel more clear. Later, you face a situation that would normally follow an old pattern. You recognize it immediately. You feel the familiar thoughts and emotions starting to form. But you pause. You choose not to follow the same path. And that changes the direction of the moment. That small change feels important. It shows you that patterns are not permanent. They are something you can observe and adjust. This gives you a sense of freedom. You are not stuck in the same cycle. You can create new patterns over time. As you continue, you begin to build new habits. Each time you choose differently, you strengthen a new pattern. It may feel unfamiliar at first, but it becomes easier with repetition. Over time, the new pattern starts to feel natural. And that changes your experience. You begin to understand that your life is shaped by what you repeat. Not just once, but consistently. Your patterns become your reality over time. And when you change your patterns, you begin to change your life. This realization feels powerful and practical. In the evening, you reflect again. You notice how your awareness has grown. You see how your patterns are becoming clearer. And you feel more confident in your ability to change them. Not perfectly, but steadily. You are no longer moving through your day without noticing. You are aware of what you repeat. You are choosing how to respond. And that changes everything. Because once you see your patterns, you are no longer controlled by them. This is where the mirror becomes even clearer. The outer world reflects the patterns you carry inside. When you change those patterns, the reflection begins to change. Not instantly, but consistently over time. And that is how transformation happens. Not in one big moment, but in many small ones. Moments where you notice, pause, and choose differently, again and again, until the new pattern becomes part of who you are. Chapter 8. The Beliefs You Never Question. There are things you believe about yourself that feel completely true. You do not think about them often, but they guide your thoughts and actions. These beliefs were formed over time through your experiences. They became familiar, and because of that, they feel real. You rarely stop to question them. They sit quietly in the background, shaping how you see yourself. And because they feel natural, you follow them without noticing. Over time, they become part of how you experience your life. One day, you begin to notice this more clearly. You face a situation where you hesitate before acting. A thought appears in your mind that feels very familiar. It tells you something about what you can or cannot do. You do not question it at first. It feels like a simple truth. But something inside you pauses and looks at it more closely. You begin to ask yourself where that belief came from. It does not have a clear answer right away. You realize it has been with you for a long time. It may have started from something small in the past, a single experience, a comment, or a moment you did not fully understand. Over time, it became part of how you see yourself. And now, it feels like reality. As the day continues, you notice more beliefs like this. They appear in different situations, guiding your reactions. Some of them make you feel confident and open. Others make you feel limited and unsure. You begin to see how these beliefs shape your choices. They influence what you try and what you avoid. And they quietly shape your results. Later in the day, you pause and look at one belief more carefully. You do not try to change it right away. You simply observe it. You notice how it affects your thoughts and your emotions. You see how it guides your actions. And for the first time, you realize it is just a belief. Not a fact, but something you have accepted over time. That realization creates space. You are no longer fully inside the belief. You are looking at it from a distance. And in that space, you begin to question it. You ask yourself if it is always true. You think about moments where it may not have been accurate. And slowly, you begin to see that it is not as fixed as you once thought. As the hours pass, this awareness grows stronger. You notice how often your beliefs guide your perception. They influence what you notice and what you ignore. They shape how you interpret situations, and they affect how you respond. This process happens quietly, but it is always active. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the beliefs that showed up. You notice how they influenced your actions and your feelings. Some of them helped you move forward. Others held you back without you realizing it. This contrast becomes very clear. It shows you how powerful your beliefs really are. The next day, you carry this awareness with you. You begin to notice your beliefs more quickly. When a thought appears, you do not accept it immediately. You pause and look at it. You ask yourself if it is something you have always believed, and you begin to see patterns forming. As days pass, this process becomes more natural. You recognize your beliefs without trying too hard. You understand how they shape your experience, and you begin to question them more often. Not in a stressful way, but in a curious way. You want to understand them more clearly. You begin to notice that some beliefs are not serving you anymore. They may have made sense in the past, but they do not fit your present. They limit your actions and your thinking. And once you see that, you begin to let them go. Not all at once, but slowly and intentionally. Later, you test this in a simple moment. You feel a limiting belief appearing again. It tries to guide your response like it always has. But this time, you pause. You do not follow it immediately. You choose to act differently, even if it feels uncomfortable. And that small change makes a difference. You begin to understand something important. Beliefs are not permanent truths. They are patterns of thought that can change over time. When you question them, you weaken their hold. When you act differently, you begin to replace them. And that creates new possibilities for you. As you continue, you begin to build new beliefs through your actions. Each time you take a step forward, you create a new reference. Each time you respond with awareness, you strengthen a new pattern. Over time, these new beliefs start to feel natural, and they begin to guide your actions in a different way. You notice how this changes your experience. You feel more open and more capable. Situations that once felt difficult now feel manageable. Not because they changed, but because you see them differently. Your beliefs are shaping your perception in a new way, and that changes everything. In the evening, you reflect again. You see how your awareness has grown. You understand your beliefs more clearly, and you feel more in control of your responses. This gives you confidence to continue. Not to control everything, but to understand yourself better. You are no longer accepting every belief as truth. You are observing them, questioning them, and choosing what to follow. This creates space for growth. It allows you to move beyond old patterns, and it helps you build a new way of thinking. Over time, this becomes part of who you are. You naturally question your thoughts. You naturally look deeper into your beliefs. And you naturally choose what aligns with who you want to become. This changes how you experience your life. You begin to see the mirror more clearly. The outer world reflects the beliefs you carry inside. When your beliefs change, your experience begins to change. Not instantly, but steadily over time. And that shows you something powerful. Your life is not only shaped by what happens to you, it is shaped by what you believe about yourself and your world. And when you begin to question those beliefs, you begin to change your reality. Chapter 9. The energy you bring into every moment. There is something you bring into every moment that is not always visible. It is not your words or your actions, but something deeper. It is the energy you carry within you. This energy is shaped by your thoughts, your emotions, and your state of mind. Most of the time, you are not aware of it, but it influences everything you experience. It affects how situations feel and how people respond to you. And over time, it becomes part of the reflection you see in your life. One day, you begin to notice this more clearly. You enter a simple situation with a calm and open state. Nothing special happens, but everything feels smooth. Your interactions feel easy and natural. You do not feel the need to force anything. And because of that, things seem to flow better. The experience feels light and balanced. On another day, you enter a similar situation with a different state. Your mind feels heavy or distracted. Your energy is not as clear. Even though the situation is almost the same, it feels different. Small things feel more difficult than they should. Your responses are less patient and less focused, and the outcome reflects that difference. You begin to compare these experiences. The outside situation did not change much, but your inner state did. And that changed how everything felt. This realization shows you something important. Your energy plays a role in shaping your experience. It is not separate from what happens around you. As you continue to observe this, you notice how your energy affects your presence. When you feel calm and focused, your presence is steady. People seem more comfortable around you. Conversations feel more natural. But when your energy feels tense or scattered, your presence changes. Others respond differently, even if they do not understand why. This makes you think more deeply about how you show up. You realize that your energy is part of what you communicate. It is not only about what you say or do. It is about how you are in each moment. And that affects how others experience you. The world responds to that energy in subtle ways. Later in the day, you test this awareness. You face a situation that would normally feel stressful. You notice your energy starting to shift, but instead of reacting immediately, you pause. You take a moment to settle yourself. You bring your attention back to the present, and you allow your energy to become more calm. That small shift makes a difference. You respond more clearly and more patiently. The situation feels less overwhelming, and the outcome is more balanced. This shows you that your energy is something you can influence. Not perfectly, but enough to make a difference. As the hours pass, you notice how often your energy changes. It moves with your thoughts and your emotions. When your thoughts are scattered, your energy feels scattered. When your thoughts are calm, your energy feels steady. This connection becomes more clear to you. It shows how your inner state shapes your outer experience. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the moments where your energy was calm. Those moments felt easier and more natural. You also think about the moments where your energy felt tense. Those moments felt heavier and more difficult. The difference is clear. Your energy shaped how your day felt. The next day, you move with this awareness. You begin to notice your energy more often. You feel when it is calm and when it is not. And instead of ignoring it, you pay attention to it. You begin to guide it gently. Not by forcing anything, but by becoming aware. As days pass, this becomes more natural. You recognize your energy more quickly. You understand how it affects your experience, and you begin to keep it more balanced. This does not mean you never feel stress or tension. It means you are aware of it when it happens. And that awareness changes how it affects you. You begin to notice how your energy influences your actions. When you feel calm, your actions are more clear and intentional. When you feel tense, your actions become rushed or reactive. This pattern becomes very clear to you. And once you see it, you begin to adjust your responses. Later, you face a situation that would normally create tension. You feel your energy starting to shift. But now, you recognize it early. You pause and bring yourself back to a calmer state. You do not let the tension take over. And that changes how the situation unfolds. That moment shows you something important. You are not completely controlled by your energy. You can influence it through your awareness. And that influence changes your experience. It gives you more control over how you respond. And that creates better outcomes over time. As you continue, you begin to build a habit of awareness. You notice your energy throughout the day. You understand how it moves and changes. And you learn how to guide it gently. This becomes part of your daily life. Not something forced, but something natural. You also notice how your energy affects your environment. When your state is calm, your surroundings feel more peaceful. When your state is tense, everything feels more chaotic. This does not mean you control everything outside, but it shows how your inner state influences your perception. In the evening, you reflect again. You see how your awareness has grown. You understand your energy more clearly, and you feel more in control of your responses. This gives you confidence to continue. Not to control everything, but to stay aware. Over time, this awareness becomes part of you. You naturally notice your state. You naturally adjust your responses. And you naturally move through your day with more balance. This changes how your life feels. It becomes more steady and more clear. You begin to see the mirror again. The outer world reflects the energy you bring into it. When your energy changes, your experience begins to change. not instantly, but consistently over time. And that shows you something powerful. Your life is not only shaped by what happens, it is shaped by how you show up to what happens. And the energy you bring into each moment plays a big role in that. When you understand this, you begin to move through life differently. That is where the real shift happens. Not in controlling the outside world, but in becoming aware of your inner state. Because once you change the energy you carry, you begin to change what you experience. And that is how the mirror reflects who you are inside. Chapter 10. The reality you reinforce every day. You may think your life changes through big moments. It feels like something major has to happen for things to be different. But most of your reality is built in small, repeated ways. The things you think, feel, and do every day quietly shape your experience. These actions may seem small, but they repeat over time. And repetition gives them power. What you repeat becomes familiar. What becomes familiar starts to feel like truth. One day, you begin to notice this more clearly. You look at your daily habits and patterns. The way you think in the morning feels similar each day. The way you respond to situations follows a familiar path. Even your reactions feel predictable at times. It is like you are reinforcing the same experience again and again. That makes you pause and look deeper. You begin to understand that your reality is not created once. It is reinforced daily through your actions and thoughts. Every time you respond in a certain way, you strengthen that pattern. Every time you think the same thought, it becomes more familiar. And over time, that familiarity shapes how you see your life. It creates a cycle that repeats itself. As the day continues, you notice how this works in simple moments. A small situation happens, and your response feels automatic. You follow the same pattern without thinking too much. It feels natural because you have done it before. But now, you are aware of it. You see that you are reinforcing something each time you act this way. Later, you pause in one of these moments. You notice the pattern forming before it fully takes over. Instead of following it, you stay with it. You ask yourself if this is the pattern you want to continue. That question creates space. And in that space, you feel the possibility of change. You choose to respond differently, even if it feels unfamiliar. It is a small change, but it feels important. Because you are no longer reinforcing the old pattern. You are creating a new one. That moment shows you how change begins. Not in a big way, but in small, intentional actions. As the hours pass, you begin to see how often you reinforce your reality. In your thoughts, your emotions, and your behavior. Each one adds to the pattern you are living. If you repeat the same things, your experience stays the same. But if you change even one part, the pattern begins to shift. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about the moments where you followed old patterns. You also think about the moments where you chose differently. The difference between those moments is clear. The new responses feel fresh and open. The old ones feel familiar and fixed. The next day, you move with this awareness. You begin to notice your patterns earlier. You recognize the thoughts before they fully form. You feel the emotions before they take over. And you pause more often. That pause becomes your chance to choose. As days pass, this becomes more natural. You do not follow every pattern automatically. You see them as they appear. You understand how they shape your experience, and you begin to guide them in a new direction. This process is slow, but it is steady. You begin to feel more in control of your life. Not because you control everything, but because you are aware. You are not repeating the same patterns without noticing. You are choosing how to respond. And that changes how your life unfolds. You also notice how this affects your results. When you repeat new actions, new outcomes begin to appear. They may be small at first, but they are different. And those differences grow over time. This shows you how powerful repetition is. Later, you face a situation that would normally follow an old pattern. You recognize it immediately. You feel the familiar thoughts and emotions. But you pause. You choose not to follow the same path. And that changes the direction of the moment. That small change feels important. It shows you that your reality is not fixed. It is shaped by what you repeat. When you change what you repeat, you change your experience. This realization gives you a sense of freedom. As you continue, you begin to build new patterns. Each time you act differently, you strengthen a new way of being. It may feel unfamiliar at first, but it becomes easier with time. Over time, the new pattern starts to feel natural, and that changes your reality. You begin to understand that your life reflects what you reinforce. Not what you want once, but what you repeat consistently. Your habits, your thoughts, and your actions all play a role. And when they align, your experience changes. In the evening, you reflect again. You see how your awareness has grown. You understand your patterns more clearly, and you feel more confident in your ability to change them. Not perfectly, but consistently. You are no longer repeating your reality without noticing. You are shaping it through your awareness. You are choosing what to reinforce. And that changes everything, because once you see your patterns, you can change them. This is where the mirror becomes clearer again. The outer world reflects what you repeat inside. When you change your patterns, the reflection begins to change. Not instantly, but over time. And that is how your life transforms. Not through one big moment, but through many small ones. Moments where you notice, pause, and choose differently. Again and again, until the new pattern becomes your reality. Chapter 11. When your inner world becomes your new reality. For a long time, your inner world felt separate from your life. Your thoughts stayed in your mind, and your emotions stayed inside you. What you experienced outside felt more real and more important. You focused on situations, results, and what others were doing. It seemed like those things were shaping your life. But slowly, your understanding began to shift. You started to see how your inner world was always present, and how it was quietly influencing everything you experienced. One day, you notice something different in how your life feels. The same kinds of situations appear, but they do not affect you the same way. You respond with more calm and more clarity. Things that once felt heavy now feel manageable. It is not because the outside world changed. It is because your inner world has changed. And that change is shaping your experience in a new way. You begin to feel more stable in your daily life. Your thoughts are not as scattered as before. Your emotions do not take over as quickly. You have more space between what happens and how you respond. That space allows you to choose more intentionally. And that choice creates a different kind of experience, one that feels more aligned and more balanced. As the day continues, you notice how natural this feels. You are not forcing yourself to be calm. You are not trying to control every thought. You are simply aware of what is happening inside you. That awareness keeps you steady. It allows you to move through situations without being pulled in every direction. And that changes how your day unfolds. Later, you face a situation that would have affected you deeply before. You feel the old pattern starting to appear, but it does not take over. You notice it and stay present. You do not react the same way as before. And because of that, the situation feels different. It does not grow into something bigger. It stays manageable and clear. That moment shows you how much you have changed. Not in a dramatic way, but in a real and steady way. Your inner world is no longer chaotic. It is more balanced and more clear. And that balance is reflected in your outer experience. You begin to trust this process more. As the hours pass, you notice how your interactions feel different. You listen more carefully and respond more thoughtfully. People around you seem more relaxed. Conversations feel more natural. This is not because others have changed. It is because your presence has changed. And that presence influences what you experience. In the evening, you sit quietly and reflect on your day. You think about how things felt compared to before. You notice the difference in your reactions. You see how your awareness guided your actions. And you realize something important. Your inner world has become more stable. And that stability is shaping your life. The next day, you carry this with you. You move through your day with more confidence. Not because everything is perfect, but because you trust yourself. You trust your ability to respond with awareness. And that trust makes you feel steady. It gives you a sense of direction. As days pass, this becomes your new normal. You are no longer reacting to everything automatically. You are choosing how to respond. You are aware of your thoughts and emotions. And that awareness keeps you grounded. It changes how your life feels from moment to moment. You also begin to notice how your expectations have changed. You are not expecting things to go wrong as often. You are more open to what is happening. This openness creates a different kind of experience. It allows situations to unfold without unnecessary resistance. And that makes everything feel smoother. Later, you face a challenge that tests your awareness. The situation is not easy, but you handle it differently. You stay calm and focused. You do not let your emotions take over. And because of that, you move through it more clearly. The outcome feels more balanced. That moment reinforces what you have been learning. Your inner world shapes your outer experience. When your state is stable, your life feels more stable. This does not mean there are no challenges. It means you respond to them differently. And that changes everything. As you continue, you begin to feel more aligned with yourself. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions are more connected. You are not moving in different directions. You are moving with clarity. And that creates a sense of peace, not because life is perfect, but because you are present. In the evening, you reflect again. You see how your awareness has grown over time. You understand yourself more deeply. and you feel more in control of your responses. This gives you confidence to continue. Not to control everything, but to stay aware. Over time, this awareness becomes part of you. You no longer have to think about it constantly. You naturally stay present. You naturally respond with clarity. And that changes how your life unfolds. It becomes more steady and more intentional. You begin to see the mirror more clearly than ever before. The outer world reflects the inner world you have built. When your inner state is balanced, your experience reflects that balance. Not perfectly, but consistently over time. And that shows you something powerful. Your life is not only shaped by what happens around you, it is shaped by what is happening inside you. And when your inner world becomes more clear and stable, your reality begins to reflect that. This is where real change becomes visible. You are no longer trying to change everything outside. You are focused on understanding yourself. And that understanding changes your experience. It creates a life that feels more aligned with who you are becoming. And that is where true transformation happens. Chapter 12. Becoming the reflection you want to see. At the beginning, everything felt like it was happening outside of you. You looked at your life and focused on what you could see. Situations, people, and results felt like they were shaping your experience. You reacted to what appeared in front of you. You tried to fix things from the outside. And when things didn't change, it felt frustrating. It felt like you had no control. But slowly, that understanding began to shift. You started to notice your inner world more clearly. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your patterns became more visible. You saw how they influenced your experience. You realized that what you felt inside was connected to what you saw outside. This was not something you learned all at once. It became clear through observation and awareness. Each moment showed you a small part of the truth. And over time, those moments connected. As you continued, you began to take your inner state more seriously. You stopped ignoring your thoughts and reactions. You began to observe them instead. You noticed how they shaped your actions. And you saw how your actions shaped your results. This awareness gave you a new kind of control. Not over everything, but over your response. And that changed how your life felt. You also began to understand your patterns more deeply. The things you repeated were not random. They were connected to your beliefs and your identity. You saw how your habits shaped your experience. And once you saw that, you could begin to change them. Not all at once, but step by step. Each small change created a new direction. As the days passed, your awareness became more natural. You did not have to remind yourself constantly. You noticed your thoughts and emotions more easily. You paused before reacting. You chose your responses more carefully. And that created a different experience, one that felt more aligned with who you wanted to be. You also began to see how your energy influenced everything. The way you felt inside shaped how situations felt outside. When you were calm, things felt easier. When you were tense, things felt more difficult. This pattern became very clear to you. It showed you how your inner state affected your outer world. And that understanding changed how you approached each day. Later, you noticed how your beliefs were shaping your reality. The things you believed about yourself guided your actions. Those actions created your results. And those results reinforced your beliefs. It was a cycle that repeated over time. But now, you were aware of it, and that awareness gave you the ability to change it. You began to question your old beliefs. You looked at them more carefully. You asked if they were still true. Some of them were helpful, and some of them were not. You started to let go of the ones that held you back. And you began to build new beliefs through your actions. This process was slow, but it was real. In the evening, you often reflected on your day. You looked at your thoughts, your actions, and your responses. You noticed where you acted with awareness. You also noticed where you followed old patterns. This reflection helped you learn. It helped you grow without pressure, and it gave you direction for the next day. The next day, you would begin again with that awareness. You did not expect perfection. You simply stayed present. You noticed your inner state. You responded with intention, and you continued to build new patterns. This consistency created change over time. As days turned into weeks, the changes became more visible. Your reactions were calmer. Your thoughts were clearer. Your actions were more intentional. You felt more in control of your experience. Not because life was easier, but because you were different. And that difference shaped your reality. You also began to notice how your relationships changed. When you were more present, others responded differently. Conversations felt more open. Interactions felt more natural. This was not something you forced. It happened because of your inner state. And that showed you the power of your presence. Later, you faced challenges that would have affected you deeply before. But now, you handled them differently. You stayed calm and aware. You did not react in the same way. And because of that, the situations felt different. They were still challenging, but they were manageable. That showed you something important. Change is not about removing all challenges. It is about changing how you experience them. Your inner world shapes how you move through life. And when that inner world changes, everything feels different. This realization stayed with you. In the evening, you reflected again on your journey. You saw how much had changed over time. Not in one big moment, but in many small ones. Each moment of awareness added something. Each choice created a shift. And those shifts built your new reality. You were no longer trying to control everything outside. You were focused on understanding yourself. You were aware of your thoughts, your emotions, and your patterns. And that awareness gave you clarity. It helped you move through life with intention. Over time, this became who you are. You no longer had to think about it constantly. You naturally stayed aware. You naturally responded with clarity. And that changed your experience. Your life felt more aligned and more steady. You began to see the mirror clearly. The outer world reflected your inner world, not perfectly, but consistently. When you changed inside, your experience changed outside. This was no longer just an idea. It was something you lived every day. You understood that your life is not only shaped by what happens to you, it is shaped by how you respond to what happens. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions all play a role. And when they align, your experience changes. This understanding became part of you. You were no longer waiting for change to happen. You were creating it from within. You were becoming the reflection you wanted to see. And that changed everything. Because once you become that reflection, the world begins to mirror it back to you.